We have two representatives from Sheridan College this morning. Michelle, who is the recruitment officer there, and Laverne, who works in the financial department. And she's going to be speaking mostly today, talking about that whole financial piece. So please, I hope you give them your utmost attention this morning. And if you have any questions, there will be an opportunity to ask them those questions too.
All right. Thanks, Justin. Hello, everyone. How are you guys feeling today? Nah? Okay. I know. We're going to be talking about OSAP, and as Justin mentioned, it's a financial piece, an important financial piece that you'll have to think about or start thinking about when it comes to post-secondary. So, this upcoming September. Okay, a majority of you. Perfect. So I hope that after this presentation, you'll be able to be informed and make an educated decision on how you can navigate your financial picture as a college or university student. So my agenda, I know it looks like a lot of items, but that's okay. If you have any questions, you can always let me know. We can go back to the slides, but in a nutshell, this is what we'll be talking about. What is OSAP? Who is eligible? How to apply for OSAP, other resources, awards, costs to consider, how to budget, this is an important one, and things to remember. So, what is OSAP? So for those of you that don't know, OSAP is the Ontario Student Assistance Program. And this program is funded by both the provincial and federal government. It is a needs-based, what we call a needs-based assistance. So it's based on students' financial need. So each one of your financial situation is different. So if you look and compare your assessments with your peers or with your friends, you'll find that everyone's financial situation is different. OSAP does continue to cover the costs for students with low financial resources to help them for post-secondary, but there is a standardized cost that the ministry has developed for which it'll help the students with low financial resources. I will be talking about that more in detail later, but this program is also an income supplement program. So what that means is OSAP is not going to cover all the costs that you have as a student, as a college, as a university student. So it's important to keep that in mind. OSAP is there to help you. Oh, I thought it died, sorry. OSAP is there to help you, but it's not meant to cover all your costs. You will have to apply for this program every year, every semester, or when we say year, it's the 2 terms, so every term or every semester that you need it, you'll have to apply for OSAP. All right, more. I know, this is great, right? You're learning OSAP. So OSAP is accumulation of both grants and loans. Grants is something that you don't have to pay back, and the loans is something that you're gonna have to repay back in the future. So you don't have to worry about it once you're enrolled in your classes. You'll have to worry about the repayment once you've graduated. So let's say you have a 2-year program, you've graduated, then you'll have to start repaying back the loan that you received. We also have 2 kinds of applications. We have your full-time and part-time OSAP application. So with full-time, we have something that's called a full course load. So in order to be considered for full-time, you need to be at least enrolled in 60% or 40% or more with a permanent disability. For part-time OSAP, you have a course load that starts from 20 to 59% course load. The numbers doesn't make sense now, but let me explain it to you. You can actually drop 2 classes, and 3 out of 5 classes means you're at 60%, so you're still considered for full-time. A lot of students who start in their first year think that they have to take all the classes at once. That's not the case. You can actually, I know it's going to be an adjustment, right? You're starting college, university in your first year, you feel overwhelmed. If you have the option and you'd like to have the option to drop 1 or 2 classes, that's fine. OSAP-wise, you'll still be eligible for full-time. Next slide. So who is eligible for OSAP? You have to be a Canadian citizen, a permanent resident, or a protected person. You have to be an Ontario resident, so you have to be attending or entering an OSAP-approved program and school, and you'll also have to be enrolled in or entering a certificate, degree, or diploma program that is a minimum of 12 weeks in length. So I want to emphasize attending or entering an OSAP-approved program because sometimes not all the programs that post-secondary institutions offer are actually OSAP-approved. There may be programs that you may stumble upon and it's going through continuing education or professional studies. They have programs that are not OSAP-approved. So if you would like to know if your program is OSAP approved, you can always check in with the financial aid office. You can, shoot us an email, or you could, once the presentation's over, you'll have Michelle's contact information. You can let her know. But any financial aid office should be able to assist you in those inquiries. Next slide. So how to apply? We all know you guys can Google this. Honestly, you can Google how to apply for OSAP. You can probably also find a video on YouTube, but here are some simple steps that can get you started. So you can go to the website, ontario.ca/OSAP. I do have the website listed on the bottom corner of the slide, but it seems to be cut off. That's okay. That's OSAP. That's ontario.ca/OSAP. And if you're applying for OSAP for the first time, you will need your social insurance number. You'll also need information about your school and program. Again, OSAP approved. You will need your tax information. So if you're working, if you have a part-time job, you'll have to provide that information. Your parents' social insurance number, as well as your parents' tax information. You can also link your OSAP application through OCAS or OUAC. Okay, so once you've submitted your OSAP application, you're now required to provide documents. Okay, so when you gain access to these documents, you'll have to enter a generated password. The reason why you have to enter a generated password is because these are secure documents, they're confidential. So in order for you to access them, you have to enter the generated password. And for starters, you'll have to print what we call the student and parent signature pages. So you'll have to have your parents and yourself sign them. Once you print them, sign them, and make sure that when you print it, it's legible, and when you sign it, you can only sign it with black and blue pen. Some students have tried providing signed documents with red and green. That's not acceptable. That will be denied. So please sign with black or blue ink. And uploading your documents. How great is that? Some students, you can still submit your documents to the financial aid office. You can still mail it in, but guess what? You can upload it. You can upload it right away because that might be better for you because it'll speed up the processing time frame. It takes about 4 to 6 weeks to process your application. You have to think about the amount of students that apply for OSAP, right? So you have to give your financial aid office time to process these applications, 4 to 6 weeks. And you can scan and upload your documents. You can take a photo, only if it's legible. If you can't read it, don't upload it, okay? Because we're just gonna come back at you and we're gonna be like, this is not acceptable. So please, when you upload your documents, make sure you can read it, then that means we can read it. And this is just a snippet of what it looks like, the status on your OSAP account. So you can monitor your OSAP account. I'm not telling you to check it every day. You can check it every other day or maybe once a week, just to monitor your application. Next. All right, I know. This is a lot of words. The Master's Student Financial Assistance Agreement, MSFAA. What this is, you're basically providing your bank information so National Student Loan Services knows where to give the money to. If you don't provide this information, your money will be sitting and you won't be receiving it. You won't be using it to pay for your expenses in school, your food, your rent, or what have you. So make sure you complete this. The Master Student Financial Assistance Agreement is your bank information. And to get started, you'll need to, first, you'll receive an email, 3 to 5 business days with a link to National Student Loan Services. You'll have to go to their website, and you'll have to provide your social insurance number, date of birth, the Master Student Financial Assistance Agreement number, which is found on your OSAP required documents page, and you'll have to provide your bank information. Complete the online Master Student Financial Assistance Agreement and accept the terms and conditions. You'll be surprised of how many applications I've come across. Everything is good to go, but this piece is missing, and the students are wondering where their OSAP funding is. Sometimes this is the reason why. So make sure to complete, submit it, so that your OSAP funding may come once you've been confirmed. Okay, the funding calculation. Pictures, yay! So we have your educational costs, your financial contribution. This equates to what we call your financial need. So this is something that the ministry has determined with what the financial contributions are, with the educational costs, and what they consider financial need. Your educational costs include your books, your tuition, and your living expenses. So these are the things that you'll be spending as a student. Then you have your financial contribution, which is, your part-time job, your allowances, your gifts. I don't know, you guys have your hustle, right? You guys might have side hustles. Those are considered income. That's considered as financial resource. You have scholarships and bursaries also. Once you start attending post-secondary, that's also taken into account as a financial contribution, which means your educational costs minus your financial contribution, that equals your financial need with OSAP. All right, so we have a tool that's called the OSAP Aid Estimator. The ministry has created something where if you'd like to know how much funding you could potentially receive from OSAP, you can go to their website and check out the OSAP Aid Estimator. Next slide. So this is what it essentially can look like. Once you fill out their little form, it'll give you a breakdown of how much grants and how much loans you can potentially receive. Now I want to stress that this is an estimated amount, which means don't go planning your financial future on the estimation, because when you actually receive your OSAP funding, that could be different, okay? So use this as a gauge on how you can plan your financial future with, as a college and as a university student, but don't think that this is Bible, okay? It's not. Just use this as a guide to gauge how much money you could potentially receive from OSAP. All right, so feel free to scan this. So this is my office has developed what we call an OSAP application walkthrough. This is essentially a snapshot on the screens and the questions that you'll be getting when you apply for OSAP. I can bring it back to this slide after this presentation, or if you want, we can send you the link on how to access this. I won't be going through this today. OSAP has changed in that the questions are pretty straightforward. And if you have questions as you're filling out your OSAP application, again, you can always reach out to your financial aid office and we can help you in filling out the application. Okay, this beautiful, colorful, jawbreaker, candy-looking thing over here. This are the parties involved when it comes to your direct and indirect relationship as an OSAP student. So we have you, and close to you is the financial aid office. The financial aid office is there to assist you with OSAP, with your budgeting questions, if you want to start a budget, if you have questions about financial literacy. The financial aid office is there to help you, as well as scholarships, bursaries, and awards. And outside that, we have National Student Loan Services, NSLC, that issues the OSAP funding, okay? And outside that, we have the ministry. I know you guys have been hearing me talk about the ministry. So this is the Ministry of Colleges and Universities. So they're basically the ones that are in charge of OSAP. They are the policymakers, and they're the ones responsible of making changes and implementing changes, okay? So these are your direct and indirect relationships with the parties involved as an OSAP student. And guess what? The financial aid office is there to help you navigate through this, okay? All right, so other resources. Aside from OSAP, we have your savings or your income from your jobs, your part-time jobs, from employment. We have contributions from your parents, family, or others. We have awards, bursaries, or scholarships. And by the way, scholarships doesn't always come from your school. Scholarships can also come from your jobs. Some jobs offer scholarships for individuals that are attending post-secondary. I know Home Depot has one to their employees. So always ask, okay? You don't know if you're not gonna ask. You don't know what you don't know, right? So always ask. You can ask your manager, or your manager's manager can ask. There's always gonna be opportunities out there. You just have to ask for them. And another resource, there's also personal bank loans or lines of credit. And we have the RESPs that your lovely parents have set up when you guys were young. So these are just other resources that's also available for you. And on top of that, as I mentioned earlier, we have the awards. So I'm gonna provide you guys with a breakdown on the differences, because sometimes not everybody knows the differences between an award, bursary, and scholarship, right? Sometimes people all lump them in one definition, but it's not. So the scholarships, these are awards based on academic achievement and may include community involvement. You have to demonstrate leadership skills as well as financial need. Bursaries are based on financial need. Although academic achievement and community involvement may be considered, it's not always required. Bursaries are my favorite. Always ask for bursaries. Academic awards, these are based on academic achievement, and these are awards that are usually nominated by faculty members, AKA your professors in the future. So scholarships, as I mentioned earlier, ask. It doesn't have to be school. You can ask around, ask your parents if they have scholarships for students that are going to be enrolled in post-secondary. Bursaries, they're based on financial need. These are basically things that you'll have to submit an application for, and you'll receive just for showing financial need. And as an OSAP recipient, you're already showing financial need, so chances are you'll be getting a bursary. Academic awards, as a first-year student, you might not be able to eligible for an academic award because it's based on GPA, so you don't have the grades to show, right? So normally it'll be your second or third year that you'll be eligible for academic awards. For the scholarships, some institutions offer entrance scholarships, so that's something that you can also look into when you decide to or have accepted your offers once they start coming in. I know Sheridan has an entrance scholarship, and we also have a Sheridan bursary. So just in case you wanted to know. Next slide. Thank you. Okay, so we talked about the resources. We talked about OSAP. We talked about awards. Now we're going to talk about the costs that you need to consider. These are normally big ticket items that students tend to, they gloss over, but they don't realize that it's actually important to consider. Your program fees, your books and supplies, residence and off-campus housing, parking and transportation. So we know that one of the biggest expenses a student can make is housing and transportation. One, you'll be paying rent, and depending on if you're doing residence or off-campus housing, it's gonna be expensive. So you'll probably commit to doing residence or renting out somewhere. But that also means you might be saving on your transportational costs, right? Because you're not gonna be traveling back and forth. You'll probably just be, hopefully, it'll be walking distance, so which means in that case, you'll be saving money on transportation. However, if you're gonna be living at your parents' house, right, you'll be saving money on, yes, rent and off-housing costs, but guess what? You'll be spending on transportation. You'll be taking the transit, the GO bus, you're gonna be borrowing your parents' car or your car, if you have one. Good for you, amazing. But transportation costs actually, these costs add up, okay? So just some costs to consider when you're trying to plan your financial picture. Okay, how to budget. How to budget. So some of you may already somewhat have an idea of how to budget or are already practicing keeping a budget. If you're not, and if you're just getting started, here are some 4 steps that you can try to remember when you plan your budget. So number 1, determine where your money goes. Do you guys know where your money goes? Like, do you know how much money you spend on things? When you break down the costs of where your money goes, you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised to know how much money goes into certain things. So track your spending, okay? Make sure you're tracking your spending. The beautiful thing about today is that you can use budgeting apps and tools. Some people like to use Excel sheets or spreadsheets. I like to use spreadsheets. So the internet has a lot of resources. People share their tips and tricks on how to budget. Please do your research. Number 2, list your income and expenses. Know your resources and responsibilities. So some of you, let's say, may be paying your phone bill, right? That's a responsibility, that's an expense. Are you able to pay for those expenses? Are you able to pay for that subscription? Are you able to pay for your Netflix subscription, your Spotify subscription, right? Those are responsibilities that you have to keep in mind, right? Number 3, review your results. Do you have a surplus or a shortfall? Are you able to pay for the Spotify account? Or are you able to pay for your Netflix subscription, right? Or if you have a surplus, if you have, let's say, $100 left over after spending what you need to spend, what do you do with it? Should I save it up for a rainy day? Should I put it towards, my educational expenses? Or should I set it aside for future trips, right? And lastly, revise your budget as needed. So having a budget is organic. It can change. You may find that one method works over the other. So it's okay to change your budget because your financial goals can also potentially change. And knowing and reflecting on your needs and wants is also important because you may think that you need it now when you actually don't. So for example, are you gonna be buying a new laptop for school when you know that the one you have is already working? Are you gonna be buying the new smartphone because it's flashy and but you know that you already have a smartphone that's working, right? Things to consider. Know your needs and wants. However, if you have the financial means, treat yourself, okay? But realistically, if you know yourself, you cannot afford it financially. Please keep that in mind. Is it a need or is it a want? And seek ways to lower your costs. When I was in post-secondary, I spent a lot of money on spending something as simple as coffee every morning. And guess what? I wasted my time staying in line, waiting like 20 minutes, coming late to class, just because I was waiting for my coffee. When the next year, after I got better and I've smartened up, I started making my coffee at home. Something as simple as making things you know that you can make. Little changes like that can impact you in a big way as a student. And you'll also be developing little ways on how to get thrifty, how to seek lower costs, right? Buying used textbooks versus new ones. Things you'll have to start thinking about. Next slide. Oh, pop quiz. All right. If you guys, I'm going to test you guys to see if you guys have been paying attention. So, what does OSAP stand for? A, Ontario Support Assistance Plan. B, Onion, Steak, and Potatoes. C, Ontario Student Assistance Program. Raise your hand if you think it's A. Oh, someone, okay. The brave one over there. Okay, raise your hand if you think it's B. Okay, I can see. These are the hungry ones. These are the ones that are hungry. Raise your hand if it's C. Great, okay. You guys have been paying attention. Awesome. So the answer is Ontario's Student Assistance Program. Next one. Okay, true or false? You must repay grants received from OSAP. Who thinks that's true? Who thinks that's false? What's the answer, Michelle? False. You don't have to repay grants because grants, they're essentially free money, right? Awesome. Things to remember. So, when it comes to bursaries, as I mentioned earlier, check with your financial aid office. And don't just check in the beginning. Once you've started your classes, check in with the financial aid office. Check in on the second week or the third week or the fourth week, because financial aid offices have different deadline dates. There's a chance that on your visit, you may have already missed the deadline date, or there's a chance that when you visit the financial aid office, there's a chance that it's still open and you can still apply for it. So check with your financial aid office when it comes to bursaries, and as a first-year student in post-secondary, you can apply for it. Make sure to budget. I've stressed that earlier. The 4 steps that I mentioned. If you want me to go back to that presentation, to that slide deck, let me know. I can give that to you. But create a budget, know your needs and wants, list out your resources and expenses, okay? And as for OSAP, make sure you apply early. As I mentioned earlier, it takes 4 to 6 weeks to process your application. Your OSAP funding may also come in 2 installments, so you won't receive them all at once. Funds are released by national student loans, and the funds are issued at what we call a 60-40 split. Let me explain what that means. Let's say you're entitled to receive $1,000 from OSAP, okay? Hypothetically, $1,000 for 2 terms. 60%, which is 600, will be released in the first term, let's say in the fall semester. And then 400, the remaining, will be released in the winter term. This is where it gets tricky. This is where the shortfall happens in the second semester. So I'm telling you, make sure you have a budget, try to stick to it. If not, if you actually, want to, let's say, look for other financial resources, visit your financial aid office. Okay? Okay, question time. I can hand the mic to a brave soul out there who wants to ask a question. If not, we can talk on the side. If you have questions. No? Pretty straightforward, I hope. There's a hand? Sorry, I can't see the lights. There's a hand. I think the mic. Yes. Da 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 da.
Hi.
Hi.
I know how there's like 4 to 6 weeks to process the application. So what time do you think we should apply for it?
Oh my God, good question. I realize I didn't talk about that. So, if you're going to be attending college or university this September, the OSAP application for that academic year opens at the end of May. Okay? At the end of May, you can start submitting an OSAP application. And the great thing about starting early, you don't have to finish it all in one go. You can actually save your application, just start it, and then save it. And once you have all the information, submit your OSAP application. The 4 to 6 week processing time frame starts from when you submit your documents, from when you submit those signature pages. It doesn't start from the time you submit it, it starts from when you upload those documents. Great question, thank you. I see a hand.
Is OSAP only for those who are in need for financial aid, or like, I mean, it's like free money? Like, are they able to like just apply for a bursary just to get like a discount off like the programs and stuff?
That's a lot of layers. That question is layered. So yes, you should be able to apply for OSAP. As I mentioned earlier, your financial situation compared to your peers is different. It does, I want to say it does benefit those that have low financial resources, but it shouldn't stop you from submitting an OSAP application. You don't know how much funding you could potentially be eligible for if you don't submit an OSAP application. And about the bursaries, bursaries are separate from OSAP, right? Bursaries are what the school, so for example, in this case with Sheridan has bursaries that they can offer to students. You could be an OSAP recipient and also be eligible for a bursary. So those are two separate things. Yes, apply for OSAP because you won't know until you submit an OSAP application. And two, apply for a bursary through the financial aid office. Two separate things, but you should be able to submit both applications. I hope that answers your question.
I have a question.
Oh, Michelle? Sorry.
Sorry,
Where are you?
back here.
Okay, hey.
If both parents' income are deemed fit, would you still be able to apply for OSAP? Like if both of your parents' income is a lot combined together?
The only way you'll know is if you apply for it and you see that you're not eligible for financial for assistance from OSAP. So I think just apply for it because the economical climate changes every year. We don't know what the threshold will be like when it comes to what they consider as a lot of income. So I'd say apply, submit, because you never know. So for anyone that thinks that my parents are making too much, don't assume, okay? Don't assume that. Submit an application anyway and see, because it depends, right? Like your parents could be making whatever, let's say an amount, a higher amount, but then you're actually living off campus, you're paying more for rent. Those costs, remember with the picture that I showed earlier, the financial expenses, those costs are taken into account when determining your financial need with OSAP. So I think just submit an OSAP application. Thank you.
Okay, so my question is, when applying for OSAP, is there an option to just apply for bursaries as opposed to loans?
Great question, Michelle. Okay, so for those of you that don't want the loan option, that don't want the loan amount with OSAP, you can choose the grant funding only option. So if you think okay, I think this grant amount that I'm receiving from OSAP is enough to help me throughout my school year, I'm okay with that. You can just choose to accept the grants. And I've seen students do that. They just choose the grant funding only option. And if they think that they need the loan amount, that's when they decide, oh, I actually need the loan. I can unclick the the grant funding only option and choose the loan amount as well. When you choose the grant funding only option, and if you're looking for more funding, we as a financial aid office will actually will encourage you to take the loan amount because that money is easily accessible, but we can talk about that, we can have that conversation, we can cross that bridge when we get there. So if you are interested in only receiving the grant amount, there's that option with OSAP as well. Thank you. All right, and that's my presentation for today. That's not me up there, that's Michelle, that's my friend Michelle. So if you have any questions about this presentation or with Sheridan in general, feel free to reach out to Michelle McLaren